Hello students, welcome back to the online tutorial class. This is Indrani Roy, your English teacher from Asian International School, and today we are going to read about modals. Now let's see what are the topics that we are going to cover today. At first we will have a short introduction about modals, then we will delve deep into the definition of modals, then we will learn about the various types of modals, and at last we will see each of the modals with examples. Now, before starting with the definition of modals, let me just give you a short recap. Now children, we know that we can classify verbs into two types. The first one is auxiliary verbs and the second one is principal verbs. Auxiliary verbs and principal verbs. Now, what is a principal verb? The verbs which are used independently without help from other verbs are called principal verbs or main verbs. The verbs which are used independently without help from other verbs are called principal verbs or main verbs. Like for example, if I say she is a teacher, here in this sentence the word is behaving or functioning independently. So here in this sentence is our principal verb. But what is an auxiliary verb? An auxiliary verb is one which helps a principal verb to form a tense or mood or voice. Hence, it is also called a helping verb. So, auxiliary verbs are basically helping verbs. Auxiliary verbs are basically helping verbs. For example, if I say she is writing a letter, she is writing a letter. So here in this sentence we can understand that writing is the principal verb, but again we are having a be verb is. So here in this sentence is behaving as an auxiliary verb because it is helping to bring out the meaning of the principal verb. She is writing a letter. Now coming back to auxiliary verb, we can we know that we can classify auxiliary verbs into two types again. What are they? Primary auxiliaries and modal auxiliaries. Primary auxiliaries and modal auxiliaries. Now what are the primary auxiliaries? They are the be verbs: be, is, am, are, was, were, been, being. Have verbs: have, has, had, having. And do verbs like do, does, did. And what are modal auxiliaries? Modal auxiliaries are nothing but the modal verbs like can, could, shall, should, will, would, may, might, must, etc. So I hope you can recollect from this explanation about what are auxiliary verbs and what are principal verbs. Now let us focus on the definition of modals. In English grammar, a modal verb is a verb that combines with another verb to indicate mood or tense. A modal, also known as modal auxiliary or modal verb, which I have explained you, expresses necessity, uncertainty, ability or permission. They give additional information about the function of the main verb that follows it. Now, modals are different from other auxiliaries have, be and do in three ways. Because we know have verb, be verb and do verb, these are our primary auxiliaries. Auxiliary verbs can be classified into two types: primary auxiliaries and modal auxiliaries. So definitely modal auxiliaries are different from the primary auxiliaries. So let's see how they are different in three ways. They do not have S forms, ing forms, ed forms or en forms. Example: do, does, did. Have, having, had. Okay. but we will not say may, made and maying. So modal verbs don't have S forms, ing forms, ed forms or en forms. We will not add anything with the verbs. We will not add anything with may. We will not add anything with can, could and etc. We will keep it as it is. Number B. They take only the base form of the principal verbs after them. For example, I can do the work alone. So I can do. Can is modal. So after that, do is the base form of the verb, isn't it? So after modals, we will always write the base form of the verbs. He may not come here today. He may not come here today. So come is again the base form of the verb. Number C. Modals modify the meaning of the main verbs. Like for example, does he play football? Now when written as the sentence below, it states about the ability of the subject. If we rewrite the sentence, does he play football? Again, we will have this sentence, he can play football. So if somebody is asking me any question, does he play football? What would be the answer? The answer would be he can play football, and this sentence is actually focusing or throwing light on the ability of the subject. He can play football. So he has the ability to play football. Now let's see the various types of modals. Can, could, may, might, must, should, will, would, shall, ought to. Can. The modal verb can expresses innate ability, permission, possible circumstances and possibility. So innate ability means any kind of ability that you are born with or that you are capable of. Permission, asking permission from someone. Possible circumstances and possibility. Examples, she can go to the market. Now this sentence is speaking about the ability of the subject she. You can go home now. This sentence is telling us about the subject who got the permission to go home, isn't it? Now next one, it can happen to anyone. It's a sentence of possibility. He can drive a car. Again, the sentence is throwing light on the ability of the subject he. So can expresses innate ability, permission, possible circumstances and possibility. Next one is could. Now could, we all know it is the past form of can. It is used to express possible circumstances, and it is also used when we request someone for something politely. For examples, I could buy a shirt if I had money. So if I had money, I could buy a shirt. So it's an example of possibility. I could lift this box if I tried. So again, this sentence is focusing on the ability of the subject I. Could you help me to do the sum? So it's a polite request. So whenever we will ask somebody to help us, we will use could in our sentence so that it sounds polite. May. The verb may expresses possibility in terms of possible circumstances, permission definitely, and prayer. Examples, he may come here today. So it's a possibility. There's a chance that he may come. May I come in? So this sentence is very much, we are very much familiar with this sentence. May I come in? We always take permission when we enter our classes. So may I come in is an example of taking permission. May you live long. So it's again, it is an example of prayer, isn't it? You are wishing, you wish somebody to live long. May our country prosper. This is also an example of prayer. Next one is might. The form might is used to express possibility and suggestion. Examples: his statement might be true. So there is a possibility that his statement might be true. You might go to Italy for training. Now this is an example of suggestion. Somebody is suggesting you that you might go to Italy for a particular training. Must. The verb must expresses obligation, necessity, certainty, and confident assumption. So obligation means any kind of duties or responsibilities. Necessity, certainty, and confident assumption. You are confident that this is going to happen. You can understand that beforehand. So examples: I must study today. This is an obligation. You want to study. This is your duty, your responsibility towards yourself. It must be good. Certainty. The child must be hungry. So you are confident by the child's attitude that the child is very hungry. So the child must be hungry. Confident assumption. You must be back by the evening. So this is a necessity. You are saying that you have to come home by evening. You are warning somebody. So you must be back by the evening. So the verb must expresses obligation, necessity, certainty, and confident assumptions. Shall. The verb shall is used in some varieties of English in place of will. Indicates futurity when the subject is in first person, I shall, we shall, for asking something, and sometimes used in questions to ask for advice or confirmation of a suggestion. So we use shall in place of will. We use shall when we talk in future tense, that we all know that I shall, we shall. When we ask something, we also use shall, and sometimes used in questions in the first or possibly third person to ask for advice or confirmation of a suggestion. You want to confirm something, so you will use shall. Examples: I shall finish my work in 1 hour. So it's a confirmation. You are confirming that I shall finish my work within 1 hour. Shall I do the work? Asking. We shall not be able to come. Future tense. So you are saying something about your future, about any action that you will be doing in future. We shall not be able to come. Next one is should. Should is used to describe an expected or recommended behavior or circumstances. Somebody is expecting a desired behavior from you. So in that case, they will use should. Advice or suggestions. For example, you should work hard. It's an advice. Somebody wants you to work hard. So that's why they are saying you should work hard. I should not scold him for no reason. Now this is a recommended behavior. Until and unless somebody does something, you cannot blame that particular person. So I should not scold him for no reason. We should be leaving for the station. Expected circumstances. We should be leaving for the station. Next one is will. Will is often used to express determination and to ask something. For example, I will return your money on time. So in this sentence, you can see there's a tone of determination in the sentence, right? I will return your money on time. The person I is very determined to return the money on time. So in these situations we will be using will. Will you go to school? So somebody is asking someone, will you go to school? So in this case we can use will. Would. Would is used as expression of politeness. Now we can also use could. We have already learnt about it. Now we can also use would. So expression of politeness. Future of the past while speaking in past. Now suppose you are saying something, some incident, you are narrating some incident from the past. You are narrating some incident from the past. So in that case you will always use would. Expression of habitual aspect in past time. Suppose in childhood you had a habit. Now you don't have that. But you used to do certain things when you were a child. So in that case you can use would. For example, would you close the window? Now this is an expression of politeness. You are politely asking somebody to help you out. The doctor knew that the patient would die. Future of the past tense. For example, the doctor knew that the patient would die. So suppose you are in that past situation, you are narrating something from the past situation, and standing in that moment you are saying that the doctor already knew from beforehand that the patient would die. The patient is no more, and you are narrating to everyone, you are informing to everyone that the doctor already knew it from beforehand. So in this type of cases we would be using would. In my childhood, I would eat lots of sweets. Habitual aspect in past. Now you don't have this habit, but you used to eat lots of sweets when you in your childhood. So this is your past habit. So whenever you will speak about your past habit that you don't have now, obviously you will be using would. The last one is ought to. The verb ought to is used to express suggestions and moral obligations. Suggestions and moral obligations. For examples, this is really a good film. You ought to see it. Somebody is suggesting you that this is really a good film. You ought to see it. And we ought to love our neighbors. This is a moral obligation. This is a moral responsibility, moral duty. We should love our neighbors, isn't it? So we ought to love our neighbors. So always remember that we use ought to for suggestions and for moral obligations. I hope you have understood this chapter thoroughly. We will stop here for today and we will again meet in the next video. Till then, thank you.